What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 298. I dressed snazzy before I return the suit jacket that I wore to Phil's wedding this last weekend. Phil, you got real lucky. The weather changed literally at the last second, and we were able to move your actual ceremony out to the beautiful overlook of one of the Finger Lakes. It ended up being perfect weather, little warm, but I think it was a lot better than the torrential downpour they were calling for.
Yeah, trying to make that call that entire day was terrible. We got to the venue, I guess, / giant Airbnb where it was all taking place. We got there Thursday and started putting stuff together. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we just kind of kept looking at the future weather, and every single day it said it was going to be terrible right when the ceremony was going to happen. And even that day, it said it was supposed to rain from 2 to 4, and the ceremony was at 3. And it started raining at 1, so we set everything up originally inside, and then somehow we got ridiculously lucky. We were running a little bit behind, and it shut off completely at 3, and then as a last-minute quick move, we decided to move the ceremony outside of the tent and back down to, like you said, the really beautiful overlook that we were hoping to have it at. So it did somehow work out, and in one of the rare times that I was the negative Nancy between the two of us, Ashley kept holding out hope, and I was like, there's no way, like, it's gonna rain, it's supposed to rain. Like, everything I kept seeing was 80-90%, not even like 30-40 where, you know, you might miss it. Like, everything was just, it's going to rain between 2 to 4, and I just had no hope that it was going to work. And then checked my phone right at 3 and looked at the radar and saw that the entire rain system had moved completely past us. So it wasn't even just we got to have the ceremony outside, but we had a lot of lawn games and yard games, and specifically croquet that you guys were playing pretty much the entire evening. So that was able to be outside without a problem. So somehow, some way, the rain worked out perfectly and ended up being, like you said, a little warm for sure, but it's August, so it was expected. But it worked out great. It really did. And I really had zero hope that it was going to.
Yeah, and on top of the rain that you guys did get, the ground was still rock solid, too. It's not like we were dodging rain puddles and mud puddles. And it was like your reception was on top of the hill, and your ceremony was down the little embankment.
Right.
And even down there, it wasn't wet. So I don't know what the heck. I think your brother said there was like an old concrete thing there or something. There was rock solid something underneath, like a layer or two of inch of grass and dirt. So it was definitely, it worked out perfect for you guys. I think it ended up being a very fun wedding. It was more like a big time hangout playing backyard games with everybody, which was very, very fun. I never won croquet. I came in second multiple times, and we were playing literally until the sun went down, and my ball was brown, and I couldn't see it in the grass anymore. And we were when we got back to our Airbnb, we were looking up glow in the dark croquet. I know our friend Alex is trying to set something up for September, and maybe I'll have to keep this suit because he was thinking possibly those same type of attires. But it was a great wedding, Phil. Congratulations once again. You are officially a married man. If anybody else wants to give Phil and Ashley a congratulations now that they're officially married, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our website. I just said that. Check out our website. Check out our store on the link tree on all our social media sites, or at the top of the website, hitting that shop tab. You can represent the BSC on the go, and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. This show got a ton of shout-outs at your wedding for both of your brothers, for your best men, giving a lot of speeches, and it was mentioned a bunch, and I believe he also gave out a QR code.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. Quite possibly the first ever QR code printed for the BSC. He was all in. I knew absolutely nothing about either of those speeches going into them, and the QR code and the ridiculous amount of support he was giving from both of them was really fantastic.
Yeah, I turned to producer Pat, who was sitting next to me, and just went, how can we hire them? Like, they're doing more promoting than we have ever done. So, like,
it's true.
Maybe we should try to push some of this sponsor money over to them, and maybe they can come work for us. But first topic here, Buffalo Bills. First preseason game is starting up Saturday versus the Bears at 1 p.m. And I guess the big question here is, before we even know, because we're recording Monday night rather than the Tuesday, and even Tuesday I don't think we would have gotten any info because they're not practicing on Tuesday, but we have no idea who's playing right now. You might, when you're listening to this, you might already know, hey, maybe Josh Allen's not playing. I highly doubt he's going to be playing. Hey, maybe Caleb Williams for Chicago's not playing. Who knows what's going to be happening? Who knows who's playing? But more of the question is, what is something or some things that you're going to be tracking this game on Saturday?
Yeah, I have 3. I don't know if you want to just go back to like every other, or you want me to just
whatever.
All right. Yeah. My 3. Here we go. So Joe Brady was the big one, and just what does his offseason full-time offensive coordinator playbook look like? Like, is it exactly how the end of the season ended last year, and that's just what he's going to call? That's how his style is. Nothing's going to change, or did he make some adjustments? Obviously, they were winning games, but they weren't putting up nearly as many points. So does he make some offseason adjustments when he has a full offseason to make his playbook and make what he wants to implement into this system really come true? Like, do we just see any different play calling? And even if he has that, is that unleashed at all in preseason? A lot of times they kind of try to hide that stuff and really wait till the season gets going to unleash all of it. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if he just has any kind of unique play calling, or it's very similar to what we saw when he took over. Tyler Bass, still on my radar, is just kind of a player to keep an eye on. I would assume a starting kicker would be playing because it's not really a high-impact kind of position, so I hope he's out there getting practice. I know he's a starter, but I think he will be out there. And so far I've heard he just hasn't had the best training camp, and he didn't have the best season last year, so I think it'll just be one to keep an eye on, see how he's actually doing. And then the last one was just the wide receiver depth past the top couple, the extreme grab bag hodgepodge of wide receivers they have. Who's out there, who's actually making plays, who looks halfway decent. And we got MVS, Claypool, Hollins, Hamler, Isabella, Shorter, Shavers. Like, they have such a grab bag of random wide receivers that play different kinds of positions. Do any of them look halfway good? I know, like you just said, Allen probably won't be out there, but I assume Trubisky will be. And, I mean, he's not the worst quarterback in the world. So do any of these wide receivers look like they have any juice left? They have any kind of separation? They're running good routes. They're making good plays. Just any kind of spark? Or are they dropping balls, getting no separation and look awful?
Yeah. I mean, I believe Tyler Bass is going to be playing, like you said about Joe Brady. Who knows how much he's going to lead on. I think a lot of it more is who's going to be the first ones in the rotation with the wide receiver groups, like you mentioned. I think Shorter's still hurt right now. I thought I saw Isabella go out today on Monday with an injury. I heard Hollins is having a really good training camp as well. With he's got a good connection with Josh Allen. But yeah, the wide receiver room with Joe Brady and how he utilizes those skill sets and the variety they have there. Number one, and I was one of those freaks that was watching the Hall of Fame game a bit. I had it kind of on the background last Thursday when we were kind of packing to head up to Phil's wedding. But the new kickoff rule, I'm going to be very interested to see how it looks. It's the first time the entire league's going to be dealing with this type of situation where, it's not just a subtle change. It's a whole makeshift new type of play for the entire league. So it's not like something that you're going to hold back from. It's going to be something that you're actually practicing what you're going to be doing because you have 3 games to get it ready for. So I think players that are trying to earn a spot, especially in the past, if you're looking for the 6th, 7th, 8th wide receiver to try to make the team, it's even more important with this type of kickoff rule because they might have a bigger role on this. Linebackers, defensive linemen, DBs, safeties, they might all have a bigger role on this kickoff because we have no idea what it's going to look like, who's going to have the first crack at the kick return. It's a very interesting thing to monitor. The battle between the backup center behind Connor McGovern. Is it going to be Van Pran Granger? He got some reps at the second string on Monday's practice, or will it be Will Clapp, who has been getting consistent role behind them? Who's going to be there? I know a lot of people have been very high on Van Pran Granger. We got to figure SVPG. Maybe we'll do
VPG?
that. But,
SVPG.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
We'll figure something out. But yeah, it'll be a lot of people are high on him. It'll be interesting to see if he can earn that role behind a Connor McGovern, who isn't a natural centerman. He's a natural left guard who's shifted over when they released Mitch Morris, and I've heard that was the plan when they signed him. But then it's the rotation behind Rousseau, Miller, and Epinesa. Who's going to be that fourth guy? Miller has looked good, but it's training camp. We'll see how he looks in the real games. Rousseau and Epinesa, I believe they're going to be counting on them a ton. Who's going to be that fourth, fifth defensive end now that Shaq Lawson's gone, now that Floyd's gone from last year? And then the last one, who's truly going to be calling the defensive plays? Bobby Babich is going to be up in the box. So to me, that's leaning that he's going to be making the calls. But is it still going to be, hey, you take this drive, Sean McDermott will take this drive. You take this drive, Sean McDermott will take this drive. Or does Sean McDermott just go, hey, this is preseason, give him the whole responsibility? So to me, those are the four things that I'm really going to be tracking this preseason game without truly knowing who's going to be playing and who's not.
By the way, I like VP Granger because that's like vice president, and McGovern already, he sounds like a governor. So I think we just get the two government boys in there behind each other, and I like it.
That's a good call. We'll do that. VP Granger.
Thank you. And then McGovern, the governor.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, no, I think the new kickoff rule, like you said, it's going to be wildly different. They've adjusted it a few times over the years, but they've been very subtle adjustments, moving the kickoff a little bit forward, a little bit back, getting the touchback a little bit farther out there to make those more prevalent, and now they're just completely taking a 180 and completely switching everything they're doing. So that's going to be huge. And then, like you mentioned, centers, defense, and then defensive play calling. I think defensive play calling is going to be really interesting, and not only who's calling it, but also like how much are they going to let us know who's making those calls? I mean, I don't know how much they're going to let on. They might obviously have that information, but like you said, because it's preseason, is that going to be what happens in a game, or does McDermott say like, hey, you take the preseason, let's see how you do, and then when it comes to game time, they switch it up and do something a little different? So preseason is always tough to judge, and especially not knowing who's starting, it's kind of tough sometimes to pick what we want to watch. But I like everything we have here.
Yeah, the first
and
one,
I'm excited for football.
I can't even remember from last year. Remember, it used to be back when there were 4 preseason games, all the starters would get at least the first half of game 3. I can't remember what it is this time. Is it still game 3 that the majority of the starters play, or is it pushed to game 2? I would have to go back and look at the snap counts from last year. I really don't remember which one the majority of the teams play the majority of their starters for at least the first half. I get rid of preseason, man.
I don't know why, but I feel like Allen didn't get in until game 3. But
that's what I'm thinking too. I know there was a preseason. Wrong. I think it was 2020. No, 2020 they didn't even have preseason. Maybe it was 2021 where he didn't even take a single snap at preseason. There's no point. Like, you don't need it. There's no statistics and data that proves that you have a better season or you have a better or worse season whether you play or don't play. It makes no sense.
Especially when you're at that level. Like you said, for all these depth guys, it makes sense when you're trying to figure out, camp battles and training camp battles and these who's the backup, who's really going to take over, like all that stuff. Like, it's very important for like those players that are on that roster bubble that we've talked about a lot. Like, preseason's everything. Like, they have to go out there, they have to make that splash play, they have to make that splash touchdown, they have to make a name for themselves in preseason. But a starter, especially established starters like Josh Allen, there's no reason for him to be out there. There's no reason to risk injury, and he doesn't need it. He just, plain and simple, he doesn't need it. So hopefully they just continue to bench all of the starters forever.
Yeah, the biggest thing, and I think I said it a week or two ago, just stay healthy. No matter what happens, just whether you win or lose, just stay healthy. And I believe the plan is going to be down the road to take a preseason game and add it to the regular season so they still stay with what they got right now. But do it tomorrow. Like, get rid of one of these preseason. I hate it. I hate preseason. Again, like you said, it's good for the depth players and the role players, but even the practice squad is so big now that of the 90 players that are on these rosters, and yes, the Bills have 91 because of the international signing, you're really cutting, 15, if that, 20 players? There's so many spots in NFL now. But that will end this one. We'll kind of actually have some football to talk about on the next show, which is very fun. Football's coming up quick. Our keepers are due Friday, and our draft is next Saturday. So can't wait for fantasy to start kicking up. I gotta get back in the win column and add another little nub to my my little placard to my trophy back there. But we will move on. The Mad Matty Minute. It continues. I think this is going to continue all of August because why not? There's no movement, and we are currently still in the NLL freeze. Every Wednesday, till we get word on Mad Vince, I will be offering my services to entice him to come back. As mentioned last week, well, I should say so far, cleaning up after his animals, returning his packages, getting him food, water boy, gardener, charger boy, light boy, insult fan, and spammer Sam. This week, Phil, as you mentioned it last week, I will be providing my services to Matt Vince and Matt Vince only on getting his bills lowered. It's pretty simple. I excel at all these sort of things. Example, last month I got my Spectrum bill and I didn't like it, so I got it lowered, both TV, phone, and internet. Matt Vince, I will be your clearance Clarence.
I like the names you're coming up for these.
I got to make it more creative because this thing's going to go on forever.
That is kind of, I was going to say, I'm hoping that this goes on for a very long time because you're going to have to get more and more creative every single week. And I'm interested what you keep coming up with because you've hit some extremely good ones so far, for sure. Like if I was Vince, I would absolutely love to have somebody do all this. I don't know how you're getting all this done with a job. You're really adding on to all of these. It's a lot. It's a lot of work for you, and we appreciate it because he needs to come back, and we need to try to have the Bandits go for that three-peat. So I appreciate the sacrifices you're making. I assume you're going to have to quit your job, maybe become homeless. We'll see. But it's worth it in the pursuit of the three-peat. So I appreciate all of the effort you are giving.
That's why I got to kind of fill this suit. Kind of Spammer Sam would wear this. Clarence, he would wear this. Charger Boy, he would definitely wear this. He's got some Chargers in there. But yeah, I'm definitely Bandit Land. What are you guys doing? Come on now, like it can't just be me that is trying to entice Matt Vince here. Like, help. Somebody's got to be offering their services as well. Maybe they are, and I'm just not hearing from you. But yeah, that will end this week's Mad Matty Minute. I am assuming, almost guaranteed, I will be back here next week and the week after and probably the week after that. So we will move forward to the Buffalo Bandits. Phil, we got more signings. Last episode, we had a Paul Dawson and a Justin Martin signing. We had an Evan C. signing, and we had two other players, Chris Cloutier and Chase Frazier, who got qualified. And the freeze happened on Thursday. Well, Thursday morning at 12 a.m. So, in between Wednesday, Thursday. Besides the point. You had to get your UFAs signed, otherwise you could not contact them until the 29th. You had to get your RFAs qualified before then, otherwise you couldn't work deals with them. So a lot of things happened between us finishing recording and the NLL going on freeze. And some things happened for the Buffalo Bandits, and we were kind of expecting it, but I don't know if we were fully expecting the UFAs that they did sign. I think we were expecting them back, but I don't know if we were expecting them back before the 29th. But I think it was smart of them to get the guys in that you knew you definitely wanted back so you could have communication with them through this freeze, regardless of what it was. Steve Priolo, 3-year deal. Nick Weiss and Matt Spanger, 1-year deals. I think two things stand out here. Nick Weiss, the 1-year deal, it makes sense. He's been signing 1-year deals for the last couple of years. Steve Priolo, the 3-year deal, I was not expecting. Like, I love it. I think locking him up for 3 more years, I think this might be Maybe this is the last 3 years you see of him. Maybe he signs one more year after that. Maybe he goes the Mad Vince role, because this is similar to what Mad Vince did, where he came here, he signed a 3-year deal, then it was 1 year's, then it was the 2-year deal. Maybe this is kind of the role that Steve Priolo is going to be doing, is, hey, 3 more years, and then we'll take it year by year. Nick Weiss makes sense, like I said. Matt Spanger was the one that I did not have on my active, my 21-man roster that I've been slowly building. He, to me, I felt lost a step. Maybe he was playing a bit injured, and then that one game he just went out fully injured and missed the rest of the season. That one, to me, is the biggest, not red flag or anything like that, but the more shocking signing, because I had Sweeting signing back here rather than Spanger, and they did not re-sign Sweeting yet, who's going to be a UFA. Maybe they were deciding between Spanger and Sweeting. I don't know the whole behind the scenes, but you know what Dietrich already said. You can't keep all these guys. You got to start having a new wave in. It'll be interesting to see 29th what happens, but those 3 players at least are locked up in Priolo, Weiss, and Spanger.
Yeah, Priolo's 3-year for sure was interesting, especially because the last, this offseason a little bit, and then even last year we were kind of like, is he going to come back? If he comes back, it's probably 1 year, and this season, again, we were having the conversation of, is he done? We didn't really expect him to hang it up completely. We didn't expect him to retire, but it was still a question. It wasn't a 100% guarantee that he comes back. I mean, we were pretty sure he was going to come back, but to have a 3-year deal on a player that could have hung it up anytime soon if he wanted to. He's been one of the top defenders in the league. He's got the championships. I think that's one of the toughest parts about the team right now, right? With Vince and Buchanan and Priolo, like these guys that are, even Dawson, at the end of their careers. And, when you have a championship team like this, it's great. And yes, you want to keep winning, you want to come back, but at the same time, going out on 1 championship is a great way to end your career. Going out on 2 championships back-to-back is a great way to end your career. So even though the team's doing really well, 4 straight championships, 1 back-to-back, like, it seems kind of easy to be like, oh, why wouldn't they want to come back and keep trying to win? The team's all there. They're going to keep doing it. But at the same time, that's a great way to end your career, is just on something like a back-to-back championship, win. So it's a good way to end everything. So it's kind of a weird, tricky situation with some of these aging veterans. We knew would come back 1 year, like you said. That's what he seems to stick with. And then Spanger, I completely agree. I'm not 100% sold on him. And I think you said it last year that just because the guys have the contract doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make the team. So I think that is kind of what I'm telling myself. And it's nothing against him. Maybe he comes into camp, looks healthy, looks great. And like you said, hasn't lost that step. I mean, they know they're around that player a lot more than we are, right? So Dietrich hasn't really steered us wrong or steered the team wrong in any kind of way so far. So if he sees something or the team saw something that, maybe was dealing with an injury behind the scenes, so he wasn't quite at 100%, then got the injury to shut him down. So maybe they think if he comes back healthy, he'll look really good. But at the same time, like you mentioned last offseason, just because they signed the 1 year doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make the team. So we'll see about him. And again, maybe they do have a lot more information than we do on these players. So maybe he was injured for a lot of it, comes back, and he can come back strong. He's not a bad player. It just looked like on film he had lost his step as a defender and then got injured the rest of the season. So he was for sure a kind of left off the roster for us guy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how the Bandits feel about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been a threat in the transition game, whether he's been listed as a defender or not the whole time. He's always gotten, between 10 and 15 points with the Buffalo Bandits, and he brings that speed element to the defensive side of the ball, which, it's always valuable back there. To me, it's almost wondering, hey, since they signed and since they traded for and then re-signed a Paul Dawson, does that mean that a Bryce Sweeting is more expendable? And
right.
Matt
lockdown defender.
Matt Spanger brings a different element that Sweeting does, and Paul Dawson fills that element where Spanger does something completely different. So it's kind of apples to oranges between those 2 players, where now because Spanger signed, I made that switch where I still didn't have to make this wholesale change because they signed both and have to figure out, okay, one of these trades that I came up with isn't going to work here. But it's more, hey, now that Spanger's in place, I don't have room for Sweeting. Where, yes, like you said perfectly, just because you sign here doesn't mean you're making the active roster. I think because they signed him when they did, unless they see something in camp, he's almost... I've gotten written in like erasable ink right now, like one of those pens that used to be able to erase. I got him in that right now, so I can still make the change if I need to, but it's more it wasn't his speed that he lost. It was more of his agility, where he was getting burned around the corners and he wasn't able to keep up with the defenders. It just seemed like the game or two before he went out for the rest of the year, it just seemed like something was off. I don't know if it was injuries. I don't know if it's just like something happened, but who knows? Because I'm looking up his age right now. Matt Spanger he's 31. Well, he's gonna be 32 at the end of November, right before camp or right before the season starts. So he's not the oldest player out there, but he's on the tail end of his prime for the defender. And then, like I said, Steve Priolo, he's going to be 38 at the end of his deal. He's probably going to take it year by year after that, unless, they win 5 straight, and then he wants to go out on top of 5 straight. But, that pretty much, with those 3 signings, it leaves Kyle Buchanan, Adam Bomberry, Bryce Sweeting, Dalton Solver, Corey Highfield, and Emerson Clark as the team's UFAs. Frank Brown and Brandon Robinson are RFAs. Dylan Robinson, his rights are still with the team because he hasn't eclipsed the 3 seasons. He has enough games, but he has not played the 3 seasons to become an RFA, so his rights remain there, but he still needs a contract. And then Frazier, Kluch, and Justin Robinson are all qualified. So when the NLL unlocks, they can do more deals. They can still get a deal done with Dylan Robinson, Frazier, Kluch, and Justin Robinson because they're qualified or the contracts are still there. But the rest of the guys there, they have to wait until the 29th. But, Phil, before we dive into our final segment, and I'm excited for that one, let's dive into our first sponsor. I'll give you a little bit more time to scroll down.
Oh, I
Tap
scroll.
That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room's at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar. They feature 30 consistently rotating taps of sours, seltzers, ciders, malt beverages, and a variety of beer.
Wednesday, which is tonight, August 7th, weekly trivia with Geeks Who Drink starting at 7:30. Thursday, August 8th, 7 o'clock is weekly karaoke. Friday, August 9th, live music with Backseat Driver. I hate backseat drivers, but I'm probably going to love this band. But last thing that we were going to remind you, Phil mentioned it last week. With the Bills season quickly approaching, that means there's going to be tons of watch parties that are being scheduled. The first one being September 8th at 1 o'clock. Buffalo is taking on Arizona. And the best place to watch this is at Tap That Tap Room. Each game, they will be announcing a highlighted player. If you wear that player's jersey, you receive a free gift. Yes, that means I'm going to be shopping for many, many jerseys. You need at least 17. They play 17, so not including playoffs, you need at least 17 jerseys, and hope to God it's one of those players. They also give away a Bills jersey at halftime, so maybe you can use that to get your free gift. Double dip there. But, Phil, don't forget the sound is on for the game. Can't wait to visit Tap That Tap Room for one of these games or for other posted events. So check out their Facebook page for those posted events or check out their website at tapthattaproom.com to see what's on tap and what's on deck. Here we go. As Brooks Dinner's done beeping in the background. For the next 3 weeks here, before our show returns to the free agent and building our roster because the free agent market opens on the 29th, we are going to be putting on different outfits to try and improve the game. On the 21st, we're going to be bringing back Commissioner for the Day segment, try to improve the game from the top down. On the 14th, we're going to be becoming the owner/president of the Buffalo Bandits, try to improve the entire environment of the game. Maybe it's game day stuff. Maybe it's, some roster stuff. Maybe it's some stuff for the social media sites, stuff for that. But today, Phil, I kind of match a little bit. We're going to be putting on the stripes and coming out as referees. We're going to be trying to toss out ideas for that part of the game that we believe can either be changed, added, removed to improve the quality of game. We're just kind of going to go rapid fire here. I got some suggestions. You got some suggestions. We had some listener suggestions. We had some friend suggestions. We got a bunch of ideas that could possibly improve the game. Do we like all these? Do we not like all these? Who knows? We're going to step through it. The first one here, Phil. And this one is kind of, a one that I don't think anybody's ever really suggested or thought of, but I think it's one that could benefit the league as a whole as a learning experience, and it's holding a yearly state of the rulebook video call with the head of refereeing. And I think it's just to get the information out there. And it's not just, hey, these are the new rules that are coming in. Like last year, there was a timeout in overtime. Right after the face-off, you can't call a timeout anymore. There were a few more added last year that are not at the top of my head. It's not just reviewing what is new. It's also a review of, hey, this is how box lacrosse works, because you're gaining new fans every year. There are some fans that have been there for years on end that still might not know all the intricacies of the rule book. I think having a yearly, just what is it going to take? A half an hour, 45 minutes, just video call, and you can just skip through it like a podcast. Just listen to that, because not everybody knows the rules. I think it'll be beneficial to the sport, the league, the fans, just for a lesson of sorts each year explaining that rule book. And then, like I said, if you're adding new rules that year, they can also further explain it then. Like I said, with the timeouts and overtime last year, they could have just explained that to the vast audience as another outlet to be more transparent and to kind of grow the league and build fanship, where when they're going to the games or watching it on TV, they know, hey, this is why they just dropped the ball and it's quickly going the other way.
Yeah, especially what you just mentioned. Even if they did like just a one-time thing, doesn't have to be every single year, but a one-time thing of, because I just kind of piggybacking off this, like a YouTube review of what some of the most popular calls actually are. Like, what is holding? What is slashing in their eyes? I mean, especially what you just said, when half the time there's a scrum up against the boards, you have no idea what's going on, all of a sudden they blow the whistle and somebody won possession. You're like, well, why? Why did they win possession? Right. When it's like, sometimes we'll say, just because it's easier, we'll say 3 Bandits players, 1 Rochester player, and for some reason the Bandits win it. And you're like, okay, well, they outmatched him 3-1. What could the ref possibly be calling in that situation against the Rochester player to give Buffalo the ball? And those happen all the time up against the boards, where it's just, you're really confused. Like, what the heck is going on? And even just some of the basic, like, lacrosse, box lacrosse 101 rules of just the most popular calls, like the 5 most, popular penalties throughout the entire season, like whatever they end up being, like just have a quick little video breakdown of what that looks like to a ref and what that could possibly mean. I do agree. And half the time, what was it this year where somebody on Facebook even asked Scott Loeffler for the rule book, like, hey, do you just have a rule book available? And like, even that stuff's not really as available as it should or could be for the average fan that wants that information. Like, the fact that there's fans out there on Facebook asking for that means there's a market where the fans want to learn more about the game, and trying to engage them and give that to them helps build the sport as a whole. My first one is interesting. I don't think it'll ever come to the NLL, but it is the extra point line, very similar to the PLL, where there's a line on the field where you can score 2 goals instead of 1. I think it'd be very interesting, especially at the end of games. I think it would bring some added strategy, not only to a team that's losing by 2, losing by 3, to catch up quickly, but also if you're down by 1, do you want to take that shot and go for the win, right? Like, if you're 30 seconds left, last possession, you take that far out shot and it goes in, you pretty much just won the game instead of just tying it. I think it would just be a very interesting thing to add to the NLL. I don't think they'll ever do it, but I do like the idea of those long shots being taken a little bit more often, and that they could include a 2-goal swing, because the NLL is already very high scoring, so I don't know if you would necessarily see that switch. But for a team that's down by 6 going into the 4th, you get 3 2-point goals, and obviously you're right back in it. So I think it would make the games a little bit closer or even farther away for a team like the Bandits, who just have some, outside burners that could just really take off. But I don't think it'll be a thing, but I think it'd be interesting if they added kind of that extra point line to get 2 goals instead of 1.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm actually more interested in how they would implement it rather than it actually being implemented. I don't know if I would be a fan of it actually in box lacrosse. It's interesting in the field game in the PLL, because the goaltender's not wearing
right,
a giant bubble suit. And those are possible. They're still very difficult to score because the goaltenders in that sport are ridiculous, and they have, they are insane creatures because they have that ball just flying as fast as humanly possible at them, and they're barely wearing any protection more than just a normal player on the field. I would definitely be more interested to hear what their ideas are, maybe more than them actually implementing it, just for that reason. My next one here, and I don't even know if I like this one either. I'm just tossing out ideas here. Maybe this will improve the game. Maybe it'll just spark conversation, because that's kind of missing right now with the NLL and the freeze. This is kind of missing in the off season with just no action going on because, again, we're in a freeze for the next month. If a goalie purposely steps in front of a player diving in the crease, it's not a call. It's just you continue playing. Personally, I love the gamesmanship. It happened a couple times to the Bandits last year, notably when Nick Rose did it. It's just smart of the goaltender where somebody's diving through the crease, you step in front of them, and you know you're going to get the call because you can't run into the goaltender. It's just a smart play by the goaltenders. But if they're truly about safety, if they're truly about protecting the goaltenders and the players, you need to remove that from the book, because that's not safety there. If goaltenders are stepping in front of a diving player, it's not just dangerous to the goaltender because the players are usually diving at the legs. It's also dangerous to the diving player where his neck might snap back or his shoulder might dislocate or something along those lines, because he's not expecting a goaltender wearing the bubble suit to step in front of him to get the call. So to me, if it's truly about safety, that would be a call that would just avoid that dangerous situation, because it would allow more players the opportunity to still dive in front of the net, but safely, where they're knowing, okay, if the goaltender steps in front of me, it's still going to be a no call. I'm not going to get a penalty. So why would the goaltender do it when he's coming out of the net and it's giving me more opportunity? So to me, again, I don't know if I'm in favor of this one, but I'm just tossing it out there as an idea, as starting conversation piece for this type of rule.
Yeah, I think that one, it should be obvious on the field, but it's not. And I mean, the referees are usually oftentimes in that situation, they're watching both the ball, the crease, the player. Like, they're watching so much all in one shot. But the way the player dives, it really dictates if they're going to hit the goalie or not. Right. Or because they're either diving at an angle where they're going at the goalie, or they're diving across, or they're diving back. But the situations, like you mentioned, where the Bandits had it happen in Rose, very nicely sold it. He's a veteran goalie. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to sell a play like that. The player would be diving straight across, not at Rose. He would step out, so he would get hit, and then they would call it. Like, who's initiating the contact in that situation? And most times in that exact scenario, it's the goalie, and you'd hope the ref could see that on the field, but it's not easy to see with everything going on. So I don't know if, like, the way you have it, if that would have to be a reviewed play. And I mean, we'll get to what a few of those next rules that'll make that a little bit better. But I think if that was a play that was just a very quickly reviewed rule, like, did the goalie step out at all, or is he in his position trying to make the save and the guy literally did dive into him? I feel like that'd be a really quick call to make under a review, just seeing who initiated contact on who. But we will get to that other part later. I do like switching that call to be a little bit more closely monitored, because goalies have gotten very good at selling that. And as much as I love Vince, he is another one of those veteran goalies who has attempted that a few times himself. So, I mean, it's just, like you said, love the gamesmanship. I don't really mind the goalies themselves doing it. They're just trying to help their team. But I think it'd be interesting if it was reviewed very quickly to see who initiated that contact and where the call should go. My next one is, it doesn't happen as much in the NLL, but it still happens occasionally, and it would just be a face-off expiration where the two players are locked up and absolutely nothing is happening, and it goes on for way, way too long. I don't know how they would choose the winner in that situation. My initial thought, which was not, I don't think, great, would just be to alternate winners in those. Like, I don't know if home wins the first.
Toss them both. Get them out of there. Yeah, send two
you're
new
done.
guys in.
I don't know, just like alternate, like, you know, just this team won this one, this team wins that one. I don't know, like, I'd have to see when that is happening. Realistically, I would say whoever has the ball, like, clamped down and can't get it free should be the one who wins it after 10 seconds. But sometimes they're just completely locked up. But I mean, the times where it goes 30, 40 seconds where no one can do anything and they're just doing their little dance in a circle, it's interesting. But at the same time, the crowd that was excited usually kind of settles down and just kind of stares and is like, what are we doing? What is going on? So it'd be nice to see some kind of 30-second shot clock, same thing, where if a face-off's just going too long, the ref steps in and is like, all right, just break it up. You're done.
Yeah, I am. We'll get into my face-offs in a bit. I have another role idea for that one. But, yeah, I agree. There are times, and speaking for the show, because face-offs matter when they do, that kind of just I'm trying to remember the one. I think it was Nardella and Baptiste, if I remember correctly, and it went on for like 30 seconds of just no movement. And I understand that's a very difficult job. There's no way I'm able to win a face-off against even the worst face-off man in the entire league. But at that point, it's literally just two hands and a stick pushing against one another and just hoping you get the edge. That's not, to me, entertaining for the sport. And yes, it's cool when you have that clip where you just get to put on NLL on Twitter or wherever else. You get that click and, look at these two guys just battling at it. There's no action, though. Lacrosse is about action. It's fast-flying sport. And just having two guys tied up that entire time. And like you said, it doesn't happen often. But when it does, you're kind of going, okay, this is like 15 seconds in and still nothing's happened, and then you just get guys on the outside just pushing and shoving. It's just like, get the game going. But like you were saying about quicker calls, let's get a sky cam or a ref up in the box, similar to the NFL. And again, I understand there's more downtime in football than there is lacrosse. Lacrosse is all about, like I just said, quick, fast-paced action, rarely stops until there's a goal, then you reset real quick, and then you're back into the action. But if there's an obvious missed call or a wrong call, the sky ref should be able to radio down and get it corrected quickly. So like in those times where there's an obvious no goal, or an obvious goal that was missed, that should be radioed down where you're not having to have the coaches say, hey, I think this was a goal. They should just be an automatic, refs up in the stairs, hey, stop the play, this is a good goal. Or, hey, you missed this call on the back. Just something where there's another ref. And I understand these refs travel nonstop. So if they're at a Friday game, they're likely at the Saturday game as well. So I think a lot of the problem is that there's just not enough refs to even possibly do this, but maybe this is something that they can implement down the road where, hey, when you do have enough refs, hey, when you do have enough technology, when you do have a bigger budget, that this could be something down the road that, hey, make this game even possibly quicker and get the right calls quicker, and you can speed up the game even more because, as the next generation comes up, the attention span is less and less, and that's what baseball is learning, and that's what these other sports are learning, that you got to speed up and constant action. I think getting calls correctly and quicker might also benefit the league as a whole.
I'm going to piggyback off that again and also ask a question. Do you think, I like the automatic calls, which doesn't happen in the NHL, but would you rather have, and again, this comes down to budget more than anything, but do you like the idea of your auto calls, which I do agree with, but also would you rather have the NHL headquarters type thing where they go up to Toronto, or do you want one in the stadium watching that specific game and just keeping an eye on that, or do you want one centralized area where they're watching all 6 games that day?
I think for the quick calls like that, you want it in-house, but for when they're reviewing something, personally, I think it would be better if they get that call from a headquarters. That way it takes the other thing I was going to bring up. Possible influence of the arena or possibly influence of previous calls out of those refs' hands and into that centralized thing. Again, that's probably something down the road. But, yeah, for the quicker calls, the missed calls real quick, I think that should come from the sky judge. But for a coach's challenge, possibly, that could come from a main headquarters in New York or Boston or wherever they might have this headquarters.
And even those was the other thing I was going to mention. I like those coming even from your sky judge because, hopefully they would have a little bit more of a setup where if they had a actual Sky Ref, he doesn't have a 3x3 monitor they're trying to stare at to see this ball moving at like micro speeds and trying to see a line on a just not very great HD screen. Like the little screen they're looking at just does not seem adequate for making these big time calls. Like if you had a ref that just had a little bit better view, bigger view, more technology where they could zoom in a little bit better and just have their own opinion, like you just mentioned, it also would probably make those calls a lot quicker because you don't have 6 people trying to watch this one little monitor and hope they can see exactly what they need to see, where if they looked up at the jumbotron, they'd probably have a better view than they do on the little penalty box monitor they're trying to stare at. My next one is honestly probably my biggest, and I think my last, because I piggybacked off some of yours. This is, I don't know, similar to NHL a little bit, where at least for playoffs, maybe not during the season, but especially for playoffs, I want overtime to switch to I think 10-minute period, and then if it's still even after that, then go to sudden death, golden goal, next goal wins. I don't love in a sport that's as high scoring as the NLL for it to come down to that single goal in overtime ends it, because I don't know, so many freak things happen, and even the NHL in the playoffs switches to just they play until they score, but the NHL isn't a very high scoring league. And I think the NLL, for how high scoring it is, should switch to a little bit of extra time where both teams can score. It's not just sudden death, and then if it's still tied after that, then just switch it to golden goal, and the next goal wins after a little bit of time where they can go back and forth. I think it'd be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting. But in general, just the NLL is so high scoring where that overtime period is just terrifying on both sides. Every single shot, you're like, oh my God, that's going to go in. And it doesn't matter who has the ball. If you don't score, you're immediately like, it's over. And then you're like just begging for a defensive stand. And you get it. And then it's terrifying the whole entire time, which is fine. It's exciting. But I just think with how high scoring of a league it is, it'd be nice to see them play like a 10-minute period, just like a little added time, and then after that, if it's still tied, go to next goal wins.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way in overtime to kind of do something like that. I don't know if I'm for or against this because I love those moments. You kind of think back to
the
San
Josh
Diego
Byrne
Panther City's overtime one where, there was a quick call, Regulari gets it out to Trey Leclerc, goes down and wins the game. So you're not going to get those type of moments more often than not, where you're going to get those electric overtime goals. But you're also going to get more lacrosse action with the 10-minute, like you said, the full 10 minutes, and then if it's still tied, the golden goal. So that one, I can see the appeal to it, but it's also you're losing that magic, those intense moments that the league can be known for. Like if this was happening, John Tavares' overtime goal behind the back, that wouldn't have counted.
Right.
Like they would have kept playing after that. The Josh Byrne winner versus Georgia, they would have kept playing. So you're going to lose moments like that, but then you're going to get more star-studded action out on the field. So there's pluses and minuses with that, like the rest of these rule changes as well. And this one, it is another way to kind of speed up the game, and I can kind of tie it into my next one after that. I got a lot of just video review kind of things. Time limit on video reviews. There should be there's some calls and reviews that just take way too long. And it's like they're looking for a reason that they can possibly use to either hold up or reverse a call sometimes. I'm thinking 3 minutes should be the max. And you get one option a game where you get a bonus 30 seconds if you're like, okay, I just saw this angle. I need another 30 seconds. Let me look at it a bit more. Like, there shouldn't be 4, 5, 6 minute reviews, because if you can't see something 3, 4, 5 minutes in, it's not like it's like going to a refrigerator and you're opening it 4 different times hoping you're going to just magically see something else. It's if you're looking at a review after 3 minutes and you can't determine it after 3 minutes, the call should stand or the call should be reversed based on what you're seeing in those 3 minutes. It's just, there's times where it just takes way too long. And on top of that, I think a reason sometimes it takes too long is arenas need to have a certain number of camera angles. I understand that arenas are built differently, and I understand the NLL is a much smaller league than the NHL, the NFL, and so on and so forth. But how many times have we not been able to get a call correctly, or you're not getting the correct angle, or there's just not enough to review? I'm not asking for 500 like the big leagues, but can we have 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 camera angles in arenas? Can we have a camera down over top of the net, directly over the net, so we can see down? Can we have one down the goal line? Can we have one down, the middle of the field? Can we have consistent enough cameras around the league where it's mandatory that you have a certain camera angles at each location, so you, at least the refs going in, know, okay, we have 3 consistent camera angles that we know of, and then everything else after that is bonus, and you should have a minimum number you have to hit at each arena. And I think that would also help out video reviews, because the refs would have different camera angles than just the 3 where they're just trying to screen in and look at that tiny little camera angle, like you said. Oh, did that fully go across the ball? I can't really see this line. And then they're kind of tilting their head like this too to see if it works. Those are the 2 things that I think would also benefit when you're actually reviewing calls.
Yeah, I think for the time limit, I mean, how many times, way too often, do we hear inconclusive evidence?
Yep.
I mean, if you're going, like you just said, into 4, 5, 6 minutes, you don't have the evidence you're looking for to overturn that call one way or the other. I understand there's some times where it's a really big call, but if you're going that long, clearly you're not seeing what you're trying to see, and you just can't make the call. Like, if it's going that long, like if it's 3 minutes and you don't have enough to overturn it one way or the other, then you don't have enough to overturn it, and it's inconclusive, and you just have to stick with it. You shouldn't be going 6 minutes trying to look for something to force it the other way. Like, that's not really what you're there for. You're not trying to absolutely prove it the other way. You're trying to just quickly say one way or the other, is it obvious? Is it not obvious? And then for the camera angles, I absolutely love that. It's very annoying, even when we're watching away games at home. And some arenas, you're like, wow, there's a lot of camera angles. This looks fantastic. They're showing great replays. And other ones, you're in the press box pretty much from a wide out, zoom angle. And that's all they have is that one like fixed camera from the 50-yard line that's trying to zoom in. And like, that's it. And they're like, okay, well, what about any other camera? Like, no, we don't have any other camera angles for this review. You're like, okay, that's fantastic. So I do love the idea that if there's just like 3 set cameras, even like it doesn't have to be 100, just like you said, like just 3 set angles that determine each and every goal. Like every arena has to have these camera angles, like you said, top down, so you can see the ball cross the line, one that is down the line so you can see across the line again, and then another top down just to see the different angle of the crease itself. And then even just the ability for them to, I don't know why, and maybe it's just a league-wide thing that they need to look into. Not really a rule change by any means, but the fact that they continually like rewind and hit play 9,000 times when they're trying to watch things. Like once you have a timestamp of 6 seconds is when his foot hits the ground, go to every angle at 6 seconds. Right. And see what is going on in each angle. Instead, they like rewind it all the way back. Like, okay, watch it again slowly. Like rewind it. Like there's one specific timestamp you were looking for, and that's it. Like that is like, is his foot in or is it not in? And every single angle, and that's it. And they just rewind and hit play, rewind, hit play. Like that's not how you should be doing reviews. It doesn't make sense to watch it live or in slow motion when you have one timestamp freeze frame that you are looking for. It's across the line at this point. He's either in or he's not in at that point. You don't need to keep rewinding it. But there's a lot of review issues right now with the NLL that could make the game better, smoother, and a little quicker.
Yeah, and again, a lot of these might be down the road when you have a bigger budget for these type of things, that you're able to invest more in this. It's just it's ideas for now and down the road. And this one pains me to try to bring up. This is my last suggestion, and then we got 3 from friends and X. But it's, if you truly want face-offs to be if you want to have me and Phil buy into face-offs matter, I think this is a way to do it. And it's a longer shot clock after the face-offs. And again, I don't know if I fully support this. I don't know if I'm in for it or out for it. But again, if you want face-offs to be an important part of the game and possibly make them have real impact on the sport and the position, this is a way to do it. You make the shot clock 40 seconds after winning a faceoff. And again, our podcast has always been about there's a handful of times where faceoffs truly matter, and it's usually at the end of halves or at the end of quarters. If you get a full 10 seconds after a faceoff win, that instantly becomes more valuable. Teams will invest more heavily in that position, and those players that excel at it become even more valuable to those teams because you win the faceoff. It's not like you're already winning it and then you got 25 seconds. If you win it, you got a full 35 seconds, which is 5 seconds more than the normal shot clock. So instead of doing what the PLL did, where it's diminishing the shot clock after a win, if you add 10 seconds to it, it truly makes the faceoffs mean more. And if you truly want Phil and I to buy in that faceoffs do mean more, if you get an extra 10 seconds of offense every time you win a faceoff, we're going to be bought in because that's 10 extra seconds your defense is going to have to be playing. That's 10 extra seconds that your offense is going to have opportunities. That's 10 more seconds that your goaltender is going to have to make some saves. So if you get that full extra 10 seconds after a faceoff win, faceoffs truly will matter more.
Yeah, I think. Would you also still make it where you have to get it over by 22? So the other advantage...
You would still have the 8 seconds you would have to get it over.
Well,
so the 8 seconds won't change.
So it'd be 32.
Yeah, you would have to get it over by 32. Yeah.
Okay.
Once you gain
I think if you left it at 22, it would be even more valuable because then you could almost pass it around your defensive end a little bit and you wouldn't have to rush over. You could kind of switch lines a little bit slower as well to get your... For a team like the Bandits, they often have their defense out there for these faceoffs, and if they were able to pass it among the defense, get the offense slowly rotated, and then by the time the offense is on, still have 30 seconds and a full shot clock by the time they get over half, I think that'd be another way just to make it interesting. Especially because sometimes you win the faceoff and you're all the way back in your own zone because that's where the ball ended up getting launched and someone's right in your face. And then that time starts immediately, and you're just kind of scrambling around to try to get it back over. I do like it in general. I think it'd be, like you said, I think having that extra time to really set up a play, and even as the game, it would make the faceoffs that matter even more. If there's 40 seconds left on the clock or 50 seconds left on the clock, and you finally win the faceoff with 40 seconds left, you take that time out, and you have a full 40-second shift that you can kill that clock. It makes that end of game face-off even scarier and more important, and like you said, makes those face-off guys that much more valuable.
So we have 3 suggestions from friends/people on X, and I'll do the one from X first, is more face-offs. And this is one that is more... it's more NHL related, where if the ball goes out of play, instead of it's just whoever went off last, the other team gets the possession, maybe that's a face-off. Maybe after a save where if the goalie can't move the ball, it's stuck in their pads or they're just covering up because the defender's right on top of it, that would be a face-off. If there's a dead ball foul, maybe that's a face-off. You'll see... It'll be more opportunities. The only thing I dislike about this, because one, I don't like face-offs, but it's more stop and go. I love NLL because, hey, if it's a dead ball foul, they drop the ball's picked up by the other team, and it's instantly going. If you do more face-offs, it's more stop and go, and it's more like the NHL style, which I don't like. The NHL wants to speed it up. That's why you got the delayed icing, where if the player gets to a certain point, it's instant. You got to go back to the other end and this face-off really quick. They want to speed that part of the game up. That's the one area where I don't like about this. It would add more strategy to it, and again, it would make the position more valuable, but I think it would also do the opposite of what the NLL and the league is known for, which is speed, speed, speed.
There's only one time I think I would actually like this, and it's because it's a time that I do not agree with the NLL giving a fresh 30 to the offense, and that is if it goes off a defender. If a defender blocks the ball and it goes out of play, I really do not like that counts as a fresh 30 for the offense, because I don't know, the defender's trying to do their best to block the shot, it goes off them, I don't know, it wasn't off the goalie. I don't agree with that rule in general.
Me if I'm wrong, I think this was supposed to be an implemented rule last year.
This was the one that got was added, right? But then they said never actually. I don't know. It was leaked, but then they were this wasn't a rule. I think they shot it down or something.
Yeah.
So this would be another way to change that aspect. If it goes off a defender, goes up into the net, you get a offensive zone face-off. So it's still in the offensive zone for the offense, but it gives the defense a chance to win that ball and get out of there. Because I think it's I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem fair that the defenders put in sometimes their body, their life on the line to block that shot. It goes off them. They did their job, and the offense gets the ball for it not going off the goalie, not going off the crossbar. I just don't like that rule in general. So this would be a way to kind of meet both sides where the offense is still in the offensive zone. So they're still kind of, they have the leg up, but it gives the defense a chance to win that ball and get out of there. I think it'd be a little bit of both sides winning in that situation. I would like to see that. But other than that, I agree with you. I think it's just too much stop and go, which the NHL also has a problem with a lot of stop and go for their offsides and everything. It's a lot of face-offs in the NHL.
Anything with more face-offs with this show is probably going to be 2 thumbs down.
I do like it in that one scenario.
I would like it more if they went with what I thought was going to happen last year, where if it goes off a defender off a block shot, the clock does not restart.
That's in general, that's the rule I want.
Yeah,
just
in the end,
still offensive ball, that's fine, but just I don't think they deserve a fresh 30 for that.
I agree with that. We got 2 more here. Longer time to be able to challenge goals. They were suggesting 45 to 60 seconds. For me, I don't mind the 30 seconds, but maybe the clock starts after the first replay on the video board. So they have to show a replay of the goal maybe within 5 to 10 seconds after it going in. Then after that, the coach has 30 seconds to challenge that call. Because a lot of times when a goal is going in and it's a discrepancy, they're scrambling for their boards. They're waiting for it to go up on the big board. If you have a set time where, hey, you see all the players celebrating, then right after that, you go to the video, and then after that, then your 30 seconds starts. So you get an opportunity to see what just happened, but you still stick to that 30 seconds. I think 45 to 60 might be a bit too long, because by then, the faceoffs already happened, the offensive possessions are likely already happening, and then you got to stop play there. So I think if you're waiting for and I understand that a lot of times that, I believe it's 2 times that they have to show the replay on the video board, but by the time some of the in-arena show it, it's already been 30 seconds. So if you don't start that 30-second clock until after just one replay starts, then you start the 30 seconds, to me, I think that would be more fair to the coaches and not stop the game, 45 to a minute into waiting for the challenge.
Yeah, I love your adaptation of this thought, especially because exactly what you just said, which I was going to mention, a lot of the arenas do not have, they don't offer the replays the same way. In the NLL as a whole, I mean, like sometimes it's home field advantage, like, oh, we're not going to show you till 20 seconds after, and there's your replay. And I think, home field advantage is fun, and sometimes I think the Bandits do that as well. But at the same time, it just needs to be standardized across the league. That and what you just said is the way to standardize it, where you have to see a replay. The in-house, video board has to show it, and once you see that replay, then your time starts. Because sometimes, like you said, they don't show it for 30 seconds, and you're just blindly throwing that challenge flag, even on ones that aren't necessarily a good goal, like the ones that are no goal. Like you should still have to show a replay on goals that are disallowed by the ref, and then same thing, show a replay after that replay is concluded, then you get 30 seconds or whatever it is. I think it's, I don't know, I forgot what the rule is. I think it's shorter if the play is still going on and longer if it's a dead ball, or I have that reversed, but there is a different time for in-play versus dead ball. I think I might have that reversed where it's longer in-play. I don't know. But either way, I do think in-house, they should have to show the replay no matter what, and I do think what you said makes sense, where it's still 30 seconds, but does not start until you see that first replay, because a lot of times, like you just mentioned, you don't get that opportunity until it's too late, then you finally throw it because you saw something on the replay, and then no, it's too late.
Yeah, the last one here, and I should have mentioned this when we first started. Producer Pat made this amazing graphic behind us. Phil and I are both. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can see it there, and we'll post it on the social media sites. But Phil and I are refs behind my head. It's perfectly. It's great. I love it. But the last one here, this one was also suggested. This was actually suggested by producer Pat. Change a goal so it can count if it goes in after the clock hits 0, because you're counting it when it leaves the player's stick. So currently, the ball has to cross the line before double-digit zeros hit the clock, whether it's the shot clock or the in-game clock. I want them to change the NBA rules. Pat wants to change them to the NBA rules. I think it makes more sense that once the ball leaves that player's stick, then it matters. Like if it deflects off somebody, who cares? It's once that ball leaves somebody's stick, then it can cross the line even if it's double zeros. As long as it's out of the player's stick by double zero, the ball should be counted. And yes, I completely understand this would have messed up the Buffalo Bandits 2 seasons ago, where I think it was Dan Craig that put it in, but the time expires right at the end of the game in Toronto. I understand that would have came back to haunt them. Maybe Buffalo still would have won in overtime because Toronto can't beat Buffalo in the playoffs regardless. But I like that idea of the ball leaving the player's stick at double zero and it's still being able to count rather than the ball has to cross the goal line at double zero for it to count, because I'm all about more goals, and I think this would allow more goals to be scored.
I completely agree. And also, it would have, the Bandits ended up winning everything anyway, but was it Georgia game where they scored, but it was too late?
Yes.
It wouldn't have gone to overtime. We would have won, and it would have been great. But I agree with this, and I think it would also allow offenses to have that extra bit of time to set a play up, because they're not trying to score before it hits zero. You're just trying to get the shot off before zero. And I think that would allow you that just little bit of time, because that shot obviously takes sometimes a full second-ish to get over there, or a half second to get to the net. I think it would allow you that little extra time to shoot a ball far out, to shoot a ball in close, right? Quick sticks. It just gives you a little bit more breathing room as the offense. I know it sounds crazy that, how many times this happens, and it happens a lot, but like 1 second doesn't sound like a lot to us when you're allowing that option, but it has changed a lot of goals over the years to not count because it didn't cross in time. And I think it's very different from the NHL, because I know that would be again, very simple comparison. The sports are pretty similar where they have to cross the line before the time goes off, but they aren't cradling the ball in a stick with a net. Like they just have a flat piece of twig that is shooting. It's never in their stick, or like in basketball, it's never in a player's hands where they're shooting it, where it has to release the hands. In lacrosse, it's in their stick. They have control, and then it's when it leaves the stick. I feel like it just isn't a fair comparison if anyone wants to make it to the NHL where it has to cross the line. I think the NLL with it in a lacrosse stick is different, and it's like that like ability.
The NBA. It's more
exactly.
Like, yes,
exactly.
Once it leaves the fingers, once it leaves the stick, yes.
Right. Yeah, and I do like that rule. I would love to see that rule change. I do think it would give the offense a little bit more breathing room, and we've seen a lot of goals not count because, even as ridiculous as it sounds, think of goalie goals. Yes. 2 against the Bandits, but those were in time. But think of Vince or anybody who pulls the goalie. It would be that much more of a strategy, because all you'd have to do is get it off, and it could roll, 10 seconds down the floor and still count, even though the half is over. So that would change that whole strategy as well. You'd have to be more careful about your goalies and those end of half pulling your goalie opportunities, because it would leave that extra time for that ball to go in. They could, cradle it a little bit more, set up their shot a little more for a goalie, and maybe we'd see 8, 9, 10, 20 goalie goals a year, which would be great for, the social medias.
So that will wrap up us as referees. Phil, is there anything else you would like to add to this episode before we shut it down? I know we were kind of anticipating a shorter show, and we still went over the hour mark. It's amazing what happens when you and I get to talking about lacrosse.
Yeah, it really goes long. I am wearing a shirt with a penguin on it, and this whole time I'm watching the penguin look like he's also talking on the microphone.
I did notice that, yeah.
Yeah, it's lined up pretty well with for those
YouTube.
on YouTube. Yeah, it looks like the penguin could be on the podcast, and I've been kind of distracted by my own shirt for a lot of this episode.
I have been noticing you looking directly at the camera. Yeah, trying to do that. Yeah, I've noticed that. I've always been trying to keep my head below the TV. You're trying to rise up. So I'm shrinking. You're rising up to get the penguin to talk. But yeah, that will conclude this episode of the BSC. On next episode, we'll be able to talk about the Buffalo Bills taking on the Chicago Bears in a meaningless playoff game. Stay healthy. That's all I really care about. In the end, we will put on the suits and become the owner owner/president/GM of the Buffalo Bandits for one day, and any other news that might be breaking in the Buffalo market. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room for sponsoring this show and this episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our store on our link trees on our socials or at the shop tab on our website. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Once again, Phil and Ashley, congratulations, finally officially tying the knot. That is out of the way. Congratulations. So until next time, bye-bye.